Hey guys, Mary Beth Temple here from Hooked for Life, and in this video we're going to talk about setting up a zipper with chain stitches, which I'm doing in a hand embroidery sort of style, in order to set your work up so you could crochet a bag or a sweater or a vest or what have you from the zipper down. Now I did it specifically for this bag, and you'll be able to find a video for this whole bag on YouTube. But if you look, you see that I've got the chain stitches in here. I've got my first round of single crochet here, and it's attached in a very sturdy manner to the zipper, and I don't have to go back later and sew it all up, and then I'm going to crochet in this direction. So this video is specifically about the zipper. If you want to see how to make the bag, we have another video on that, but let's jump right in and talk about the zipper. So this is a practice zipper that I used in some other videos that I have made. So I'm going to begin my chain stitching on this side, and it's much like a chain embroidery stitch that you would do. I'm going to start here, I'm going to go all the way up, I'm going to go across, I'm going to go all the way back, and then I'm going to join at the beginning. So to get started, I like these zippers with the metal teeth. You can use a regular polyester all-purpose zipper. This is from, let's see, who is this from? This is the fashion brand from Coats & Clark. I like the fabric because it's a little more loosely woven, and I just like metal teeth. I think they're more interesting. So I'm going to pick a tapestry needle, and I want to make sure I have one that has a little bit of a point. Some tapestry needles are so blunt on the end that you're just never going to get through that fabric. And you need to make a big enough hole that the yarn will come through with you. And this project uses a light worsted cotton, so I want to have a pretty sizable needle, but I do want a point. The other thing I want to point out, I am using the project yarn so that it sort of becomes invisible, but thinner yarn would be easier to do. Why make anything easier? That's not who I am. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to bring my needle up from the back, and I want to make sure to sort of split the difference between the teeth and the edge. If I'm too close to the teeth, the yarn will get caught in the zipper and it will snag. And I want it below, just below, the zip stop is what that's called. So I'm going to bring my yarn up from the back. Now I'm just going to leave a 4 to 6 inch tail. I'm going to weave that in later. I'm not going to go crazy. So I'm going to hold my thumb on this loop because I don't want it to go through. And I'm going back right next to where I was. It doesn't have to be the exact same hole. It can be a little next to it, but the same general gist. And again, I'm using my thumb to make sure I don't pull that chain all the way through. So now the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go up a little bit and come up again from the back. So let's say about here. Now there is math that can be done. You can do a gauge swatch. You can figure out how many stitches per inch you're getting in your gauge swatch, and that's how many chain stitches you can do. You can get a ruler out, you can draw dots, you can do all those things. For me personally, I don't like to work that hard, and I discovered that I was getting 12-ish stitches to the inch for this pattern in single crochet. And for me, if I go up every 3 teeth, if I count teeth on the zipper, that gets me to that gauge, or at least close enough that I'm not going to worry about it. So you saw I put my needle through the loop, and I'm going to tighten it up. I don't want that loop to come undone. Now, so far as tension goes, this is going to be a little loosey-goosey because it's not woven in yet, and that's okay. But I want to make sure that my chain stitches, because they're, relatively speaking, they're big. I'm going to make sure they're laying flat across the fabric. There's not a huge gap, but also that I'm not pulling so tight that the zipper gets squishy. We don't want that. So I'm going to put my needle back down inside the loop, pretty close to the space where I was, and I'm going to count 3 teeth. Again, your mileage may vary. You might want to draw dots, you might want more teeth, you might want less teeth, up to you. But this is what we're going to do, and we're going to do this all the way up this one side. Now I've been asked, does it matter if it's an odd number of stitches or an even number of stitches? Not really. this particular zipper that I'm making is to work on this purse, and this purse had an odd number of stitches, but I wound up making an even number of chains and then adjusting later. Again, this is more of an art than a science, and you can finesse it however you need to. So I'm going back into that chain. I'm going up ahead in the neighborhood of 3 teeth. That will at least keep me nice and even. I'm going to wrap my yarn around that needle and pull it through. Down very close to the same spot. And if you don't want to count teeth, that's fine. You can just try and keep them about the same size. Or again, you could get a ruler out, draw some dots, give yourself some rules. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to finish up the side, and then we're going to talk about the short sides. All right, so we have the first long side done. You can see my stitches are pretty close to being even in length. One thing I wanted to point out about the yarn, I did not pull off a piece of yarn that was long enough to go all the way around for a couple of reasons. One is because this is a cotton yarn, I'm not sure if you can tell in the video, but it's starting to wear a little bit, and I think it would just be frayed all to crap by the time I got to the other side. The other reason is because if I'm trying to pull a 2 or 3 yard piece of yarn through this, it's going to get tangled and be a mess. So I'd rather have the 2 strands, and I will go and weave those tails in later. So I'm on my last chain stitch on this side. I want to go just a little bit past the zipper tab. Once again, I'm going to wrap my yarn around the needle, make sure that loop doesn't pull out, and pull it through. Now to go across the short side, and I'm going to do the same thing the other side, I just want to go 1 big chain across. Now, so I'm going back in my same chain, and I'm coming up way over there on the other side. Now, you could do multiple chain stitches across here, like you could go in with a crochet hook and put a chain stitch. My issue with that is I don't feel that it's snug enough when I do that, so I like to just put this 1 sort of big chain going across. I'm going to tighten that up a little bit because I want the 2 ends of the zipper to be pretty close. And I also, when I work on subsequent projects, I can put more than 1 stitch in there and make that even out from a crochet perspective. Now this is a great time to double check that your zipper is moving freely and it's not catching any of the chain stitches that you put in. So now I'm on this side, again, splitting that difference. I'm going back into that chain loop, going up a little bit, and I'm going to keep stitching till I run out of yarn, and then I'm going to add a second strand. And it's a little bit easier to go back and make sure that you have the same amount of stitches on both sides because you can see the existing stitches. You can count teeth if that's what you've been doing, but it's also super easy to see where a stitch begins on this side. That's where it's going to end on this side. That's where you're going to bring your needle up. So I'm going to go ahead and work down this other side, and then we will talk about addressing the end. All right, I have put my last stitch in going in this direction. Once again, I know I'm hammering on this, but it's a good time to make sure your zipper still works. Because if you have your yarn caught in there, you want to address it before you finish things off and weave in all the ends and whatnot. So there's my first stitch that I made. Here's my last stitch that I made, and here is my short edge. So I'm going to take this, I'm going to run the needle up under the first stitch, bring it back, put my needle down in the same chain and pull it through. And now I'm all done. So I have 4 ends to weave in. I have these 2, and then I have these 2 from where I added my second strand. And what I did is I mean, you could weave them in and out of here, but again, I don't want too much yarn close to the metal teeth. What I did on the purse that I have in the other videos, I wove in the ends in the stitching once the stitching was on there. So I'm going to leave those ends for now, and I want to talk about stitching into the chains. We're going to do crochet first and then knitting. So I'm going to just stitch into these chain stitches as if they were actual tops of crochet stitches. So we're going to do the crochet first. As I mentioned earlier, and I did in the purse pattern, I like to put 2 stitches in the end just so it doesn't pull tightly. And in the purse pattern, which I know I keep talking about it, but there is a separate video on that, I did some more increasing on that side to sort of, on the short sides, to sort of accommodate how tight the fabric is. And so what I'm going to do from here on out, I'm just going to put my hook under both legs of that stitch and make my stitch. Does it have to be a single crochet? No, it can be whatever stitch you want. I'm just doing single crochet because I'm starting this purse. Sometimes I like to sort of fold, let's see if I can do this and have it not be blurry. You can fold that fabric back a little bit if that's easier to see, and now it really does look like the top of a regular crochet stitch. Again, if I had a specific number that I was trying to get to, I could increase here and there. I could put more than 1 stitch in one of these. But again, more of an art than a science, and I tend to sort of just kind of feel my way. So when I get around to the end, I would join my round in the first single crochet, and then again, if I'm doing my own thing, I might put some more increases on the short sides until I had enough fabric to accommodate how wide that fabric is. But if I'm following the pattern, I'm going to do what the pattern tells me. So that's what I have to do about crochet. Let's talk about knitting into those chains. All right, I'm going to use a short circular needle, about a 16-inch. Now I have a 9-inch zipper, which means it would be 18 inches around plus or minus to add some stitch count on the short edges. However, I think a 16 is going to be fine. I wouldn't do like a 24 or bigger because I think it would pull. So let's go ahead and pick up our stitches. For this side piece where I'm going to want more than 1 stitch in one chain, I'm going to insert my needle right in there and pick up and knit a loop like I normally would. If I want to put a second one in there, I don't want to put it in exactly the same way. I'm just going to grab the front loop on the second time. That keeps it from pulling out the first stitch. It's not as hard as I'm making it look. It's a super weird angle to get on the camera. So there I have 2 in there. So I'm coming up my first long side. I'm going to get my needle under both legs of those stitch. Pick up my yarn. Bring it up. Under both legs of the next stitch. Bring up my working yarn. Make sure you're not catching a tail, which I almost did. And now I can go ahead and just keep putting stitches on. And once again, I think folding the fabric back so it's out of the way makes it a little easier to do. When I get to my short side, I'm going to go ahead and put 1 stitch in the short side the way I normally would, and then I'm only going to pick up the front loop the second time so I don't accidentally pick out my first stitch. And then when I get around all the way around to the beginning, I'm going to put a stitch marker to mark my beginning of the round. And if I need to, again, if I need to fiddle around in here to adjust the stitch count to go with a specific pattern, I'm likely to do that on the next round. Right now I'm just trying to get all my stitches up on a needle. And that's really all there is to that. So if you want to see the crochet vacation bag, there is a video on that. I have not done a knitted one yet, but possibly I should. Anyway, thanks so much for joining me. Please like the video and subscribe to the channel. And I'm putting up videos just as fast as I can. Thanks for joining me. I'm Mary Beth Temple. Bye-bye.